Greetings, we'll cover a few details about Olav V of Norway and his life in a succinct manner. Here is a short rundown of his early years, education, World War II and early career, reign, persona, legacy, illness and demise, funeral. From 1957 until his passing in 1991, he was the King of Norway. Olav was the only child of Maud of Wales and King Haakon VII of Norway. When his father was crowned King of Norway in 1905, he was declared the heir apparent to the throne. Since Olav IV in the 14th century, he was the first successor to the Norwegian throne to be raised in Norway, and his parents made sure he received as Norwegian of an upbringing as they could. Also known as Prince Alexander of Denmark, Olav, ne Alexander Edward Christian Frederick, famous as former King of Norway. Born July 2, 1903, Appleton House, United Kingdom. Died January 17, 1991, the Royal Lodge, Holmenkollen, Norway. Father, Haakon VII of Norway. Mother, Maud of Wales. Spouse, Princess Martha of Sweden. Children, Harald V of Norway, Princess Astrid, Mrs. Ferner, Princess Ragnhild, Mrs. Lorentzen. Education, Balliol College, Oxford, Norwegian Military Academy. Prince Karl of Denmark and Princess Maud of Wales welcomed Alexander Edward Christian Frederick into the world as Olav V of Norway on July 2, 1903, at Appleton House on the Sandringham estate near Flitcham, England. His mother was the youngest daughter of King Edward VII of the United Kingdom, and his father was the second son of Crown Prince Frederick of Denmark, who succeeded his father as King Frederick VIII in 1906. Due to his Norwegian ancestry and English ties, his father was chosen as the first King of Norway since 1387, when the union between Sweden and Norway was dissolved, while he was just 2 years old. During his coronation, he gave his son the Norwegian name Olav, after the Danish King Olaf II Haakonsson, and adopted the Old Norse name Haakon VII. Olav experienced a meticulously described Norwegian childhood and graduated from Oslo's Halling School in 1921, with a high school diploma. He graduated from the Norwegian Military Academy in 1924, placing fourth in his class, and went on to complete a 2-year study in law and economics at Balliol College in Oxford. He was a competitive athlete who frequently competed in sailing competitions and the ski jumping event at Holmenkollen in Oslo during his childhood. He continued to sail into his senior years. He competed for Norway at the 1928 Summer Olympics in Amsterdam and took first place in sailing for sailboats in the 6-meter class. Olav V of Norway enlisted in the Norwegian Army in 1931 as a lieutenant before receiving his training as a Navy cadet while stationed on the Olav Tryggvason. He had intense training during the ensuing years, taking part in most military drills, and advanced swiftly through the ranks, eventually becoming a colonel by 1936. He joined his father in the Second World War effort to stave off German advances, when he was appointed General of the Norwegian Army and Admiral of the Royal Norwegian Navy in 1939. He offered to stay behind when German forces invaded Norway in 1940, but was compelled to travel with his father into exile in the UK, where he supported his father's government in exile. Princess Martha and the 3 kids were deported to the United States during World War II, where they settled on Pook's Hill in Bethesda, Maryland, northwest of Washington, D.C. During their time in the U.S., President Franklin D. Roosevelt and Prince Olav and Princess Martha grew close. Throughout the war, he was quite active, frequently visiting Norwegian and Allied forces in the UK, Canada, and the US, and he established himself as a capable commander, who was regarded by other Allied officials. Olav, who was appointed Norwegian Chief of Defense in 1944, organized the disarmament of the German occupiers upon his return to a liberated Norway in May 1945. Until his father's arrival in June, Olav served as regent for his father. During the 1920s, Olav V of Norway developed a romantic relationship with his first cousin, Princess Martha of Sweden. They secretly were married in 1928, while attending the Summer Olympics in Amsterdam. The royal wedding, the first in the nation in 340 years, took place at Oslo Cathedral in Norway on March 21, 1929, after the engagement was formally announced in January 1929. The Skogum estate near Asker, west of Oslo, was presented to the Crown Prince and Crown Princess as a wedding present, and they moved there after being married. Princess Ragnhild, born in 1930, was the first royal to be born in Norway in 629 years. Princess Astrid and Prince Harald V were their other two children. Olav served as regent until Haakon's passing in 1955, when his father was hurt in an accident. At Oslo's royal palace, Haakon passed away on September 21, 1957. At 85 years old, he was. Olav succeeded him as Olav V after his passing. Olav enjoyed enormous popularity during his reign as the people's king. Even though he was a king and could drive in bus lanes, he preferred to drive his own cars and would do so in the public lanes. King Olav, who was legally permitted to drive during the 1973 energy crisis, wanted to set an example, so while getting ready for a skiing excursion, he donned his ski gear and boarded the Holmenkolben suburban railway, while carrying his skis on his shoulder. He claimed that he had 4 million bodyguards, when later questioned about how he had the temerity to leave his bodyguardless home. At the time, Norway's population stood at 4 million. Olav received the Holmenkollen Award in 1968, the Medal for Outstanding Civic Achievement in 1970, and was named Name of the Year in 1975, for his sporting prowess and duty as king. He showed a keen interest in military things and was quite serious about his responsibilities as nominal commander-in-chief. He served as Colonel-in-Chief of the Green Howards, Alexandra, Princess of Wales's Yorkshire Regiment, a British regiment named after his grandmother, Queen Alexandra, in addition to his ceremonial positions in the Norwegian army. Throughout his reign, the king traveled much as a representative of Norway, making state trips to both nearby nations and farther-off places, like Ethiopia and Iran. The 14th World Scout Jamboree was inaugurated by King Olav V in the presence of 17,259 scouts from 94 nations in July 1975. Olav was not in charge of using the executive power, despite the fact that the Constitution gave him that authority. According to one source, his duties were primarily ceremonial. His deeds required the countersignature of a minister, generally the prime minister, who subsequently assumed political accountability for the deed. Although he had the legal authority to choose the government, in actuality he was unable to maintain a government in power against the Storting's will. As a result, in reality, his role was mostly one of representation. He nevertheless held immense moral influence, as a representation of the unity of the country, just like his father had before him. King Olav served as a symbol of Norwegian independence and solidarity during the Second World War. The King Olav V's Prize for Cancer Research was founded in 1992, following the death of King Olav's wife, Princess Martha, from cancer. King Olav was named Norwegian of the Century in a 2005 survey by the Norwegian Broadcasting Corporation. The 2-year-old Prince Alexander, Olav, was portrayed by Victor Anderson in the 2009 NRK drama series Harry and Charles. Crown Prince Olav was represented by actor Anders Basmo Christensen in the 2016 drama The King's Choice, and by actor Tobias Sandelman in the NRK drama Atlantic Crossing from the year 2021. The king experienced health issues in the summer of 1990, but he made considerable progress toward recovery by Christmas of that same year. He fell unwell and passed away from a myocardial infarction on January 17, 1991, when he was 87 years old and living in the Royal Lodge Kongsseteren in Oslo. The potential exists that King Olav experienced significant trauma after learning of the start of the First Gulf War, which started the day before he passed away, according to King Harold V's interview and clues in a biography by Joe Benko, who was the president of the Storting at the time. Harold V, Olav's son, succeeded him as ruler. Norwegians publicly mourned for several days leading up to the official burial, lighting hundreds of thousands of candles in the courtyard outside the royal palace in Oslo and interspersing them with notes and cards. All of these cards have been kept by the National Archives. On January 30, 1991, King Olav V's state funeral took place. More than 100,000 people gathered along Karl Johan's gate to pay their respects as the funeral procession traveled from the royal palace to the Oslo Cathedral. The funeral's eulogy was delivered by Prime Minister Gro Harlem Brundtland before the body was taken to Akershus fortress for a private service. Finally, Olav was buried in the royal mausoleum's green sarcophagus with his wife Martha.